Hey everyone, before we get started with today's video, I just wanted to make a quick reminder, or for those who may not have heard, but I have joined the Chilling family, and I want to make sure that you take advantage of the free trial if you haven't yet. The Chilling app is the home of horror with hundreds of scary stories, creepypastas, and true crime, with new ones being added each week. And even better, it's completely ad-free. I'm really happy to be on board, and I hope you all can check it out as well. Download it now and start your free trial today. Click the link in the description below or just simply search Chilling in the App Store. I'm addicted to liminal spaces. You can find plenty of videos with examples across YouTube. Before I know what liminal meant, I was enthralled with the idea. To put it as simply as I can, the definition of liminal describes the initial or transitional stage of a process. It is also the boundary of a threshold. Look up some liminal spaces on Google. It'll just be easier once you have an idea what this looks like. Go ahead. I'll wait. Do you have a better idea of what I mean now? I guess I identify most with the stillness and strangeness of these places. There's usually no exit you can see. They're empty, and most have an overwhelming nostalgic feel. It's like we have been to these places before. Seeing a living room with no furniture and an old 80s style green carpet, it speaks to some of us. I'm sure most had a friend's place that looked like this, or maybe it was your own house. When you image search liminal spaces, there are a lot of hallways that pop up. I'm sure not many of us had hallways in our home. But you must have been to a hotel or two, right? It's familiar, but eerie. It's the best example of liminal. It's a transition. A hallway, it takes you somewhere. But when you can't see the exit immediately, it is sometimes heart-pounding. There is something about the fear of these places that appeals to me. Don't get me wrong, I love the nostalgia, but fear is what drives me. Fear keeps you alive. The deeper that I dove into liminal spaces, the deeper down the rabbit hole I got. I live here now. I seek it. I seek what you are too afraid to find. I've been in the backrooms and survived. My first time, I didn't even know what was happening. I had no idea that I was there. After I realized what happened to me, and how fortunate I was addicted. You think it's hard to no-clip back to reality. Try doing it dozens of times. This is the first time it happened to me. 3 years ago, I was a deputy sheriff for one of the larger cities in the US. At the time, I was assigned to the electronic monitoring unit. We installed and monitored tethers or ankle bracelets. Each officer had a caseload of 30 to 40. If the offender was fortunate enough to receive a tether as a part of their bond condition, then we would enforce the rules associated with said tether. Usually, it went well, with most obeying their court-ordered curfews or house arrest rules. Some men and women were assigned alcohol tethers. It's like a handheld preliminary breath test, a PBT, which they have to blow into 5 times a day to prove they're not imbibing alcohol, of course. These are mainly given out for drunk driving type of offenses. I'm sure you could figure that part out. I was sitting at my desk, monitoring my caseload and doing paperwork, whatever encompasses my day-to-day work life. A partner of mine, C, came up to me, dropping another file on my desk. "What's this?" I said. "Name's not important. She's missed several blows. Can't get a hold of her. I have a couple locations that she might be at. You want to go look for her with me?" he said. This is another part of our job, one that is always exciting. When someone tries to cut their device off, or doesn't fulfill the responsibilities imposed on them by the court, we go look for the offender. We call them absconders. They are now violating their bond conditions, and we have to find them. Being that alcohol tethers don't have a GPS element to them, we have some work to put in to find them. As mentioned, the offender that he was looking at had not taken an alcohol test in a while. He made some calls, determining what the last location she was at, and we started there. To set the scene, the subject was at a location in southwest Detroit, not a great area. It was about 8 o'clock at night in the late fall, which meant it was cold and dark. Tough conditions to start searching for someone. Pulling up to the possible last known location, we were looking at a house that looked out of place for the area. Southwest Detroit is known to have one-bedroom ranch-style houses. This residence looked like something out of Hill House. It was well kept, maybe a 3-bedroom, 3-bath home. The lawn was beautiful. The lanterns outside were pretty but felt foreboding. As soon as we had approached the front door, I had a bad feeling. I posted out at the corner of the house, and my partner C went to the front door. After knocking on the door and announcing ourselves as a part of the sheriff department, it slowly opened. A lady slowly peeked her head out. Strangely enough, she focused her gaze on me, not my partner, right in front of the door. I'll never forget her face. It was human, make no mistake about that, but it looked like paper mache, with a long scraggly wig on top. I honestly couldn't tell if she was black, white, Asian, or otherwise. Her skin had a glisten to it, but the color was off-puttingly gray. My partner continued with the mission. "Ma'am, we're with the sheriff department. Is Camille here?" She finally moved her gaze from me to my partner. Her dead black eyes stared at C for a moment before she finally spoke. "Camille, yes, she is here." My partner looked at me with a, "What the heck are we getting ourselves into?" kind of look. "Okay, great. So can we come in and talk to her?" C asked. Without technically giving consent, the supposed homeowner turned around and waved us inside. I made my way inside behind my partner. While C talked to the strange woman, I immediately noticed a ledger book on an older-looking desk right in front of the door. It had several entries from what appeared to be caretakers. The person signed their name when they arrived, when they departed, and a summary of what they did. As I suspected, these people were caretakers of sorts. This lady obviously could not take care of herself and needed some in-home nurse help. I quietly tapped my partner on the shoulder, showing him the book. The name of the person we were looking for was in the book several times, although she had not signed in on the day that we were here. Not quite sure what our next move was, we talked about searching this place. At this moment, I felt a bump on my leg. While we were talking, We both seemed to forget the lady that we were talking to. Looking down, I jumped back a bit, seeing the strange woman on all fours at my feet. She slowly looked up at me. "Camille," is all she said, and that is all she would say, getting louder and louder. "Camille, Camille, Camille." She was almost screaming. She scooted around on her butt, using her arms to move her body around the floor. Now we were in real disbelief. "Okay, man, let's just clear this house, and if we find her, we find her," she said. We both knew this situation was off, but started searching the house. The entire time, this woman was yelling for Camille, never once getting back to her feet, just kind of following us around on the ground. The time must have been around 9 o'clock at night, and it was dark outside. The inside of the home had one light on. There were no TVs or any electronics of any kind. The house had a strange feeling to it. The layout of this older style home had about 4 bedrooms and 2 floors. Every time I left a room, I swear I was in a part of the house that I had just not been. I would enter a hallway and seemingly be in another part of the house, like I had entered a dimensional gap or something. The woman would sometimes be right behind me, crawling around on the floor without making a sound. I was starting to question how all of this was possible. At one point, we both entered the upstairs, which looked to be a regular upstairs, with bedrooms or maybe a bathroom at the top of the stairs. As we opened the door initially, it wouldn't budge. It appeared that it had been sealed shut somehow, like it had been painted over and over, and the paint had dried in the seams of the door. After putting in a little extra effort, the door opened, revealing an attic, not bedrooms. If you remember Paranormal Activity, when the guy finds a picture of his wife as a child in the insulation, well, that's what it looked like. There was nothing but storage space, insulation, and an older style light bulb with a string hanging from it. The lady, she was just sitting at the bottom of the stairs watching us, occasionally yelling for Camille. After what seemed like an hour of searching this house repeatedly, going into rooms I swear that I had just left, we finally called it, and we cleared the property. As we drove off, that woman was now standing right out in front of the door, staring at us as we left. According to when we called dispatch and when we cleared, we were only there for 20 minutes, but it felt like we were there for well over an hour or 2. I don't know what was more unsettling, the fact that it was late at night, the lady yelling Camille's name, and scooting around on the ground on her hands and knees, her quietly showing up behind me when I hadn't heard her move at all, or the fact that she was standing at the door, just staring at us as we left. We have not returned back to this house. We didn't tell anyone the true story of what had happened. It wasn't until much later that I realized I was in some form of the Backrooms. My partner too, I imagine. It's a miracle that we both survived. At one point, I opened a bedroom door and I was outside. Behind me, my partner had bumped into me. We both reached for our weapons, thankfully seeing that the threat was only each other. "I already searched out there," he said. I was confused, but I just let it go. I couldn't understand what we were doing here. That started my fascination of the liminal world. I began actively looking for this world again. I found it plenty of times. I quit my job with the sheriff's department. I now traverse the ethereal plane known as the Backrooms. I've conquered the main levels, even finding some of the by-levels. I've traded and I met some other great explorers. I can't admit this to anyone, but I've been trying to find that original house that led to my first backroom experience. I have not found it, but I know it's out there. I'll travel for the rest of my life until I see it again, in this world or the next.